The sun was setting low over the rolling hills of eastern Tennessee, throwing long shadows across the land and turning the sky into this burning mix of gold and amber. A battered navy blue 1985 Ford F-150, dust-caked from miles of highway, rumbled down a winding back road. Every turn, every bump, felt familiar, like the past calling her home. Behind the wheel, Rebecca Mitchell Becky, if you knew her, kept her eyes on the road. 32, with hazel eyes that had seen more than most folks ever would. Her chestnut hair was pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, a few loose strands softening the edge of her jaw. But there was a heaviness in her face, a certain strength, like someone who'd spent years fighting invisible wars. It was July 4th, 2004, Independence Day. Becky was finally coming home after 6 long years. As she crested the last hill, oakage spread out in front of her, this tiny Tennessee town frozen in time. The white steeple of First Baptist Church still sliced the skyline. The Civil War Memorial still stood sentry in the town square. Stewart's General Store, with its faded red awning, marked Main Street just like always. Across the way, Darlene's Diner glowed with warm yellow light. You could almost hear the stories, the veterans' laughter, the rituals that never seemed to change. Becky's hands tightened on the wheel. 6 years, a lifetime of secrets. In the glove compartment, a folded document, her honorable discharge from the U.S. Army. It didn't say a word about Delta Force, about the missions that erased her identity. Code name, Sentinel. One of the first women through that door, though the country would never know. As the truck crawled past the welcome to Oakage sign, population 326, a big banner announced fireworks at sunset. Flags hung in every storefront window, catching the breeze like a Norman Rockwell painting come to life. On the old truck radio, Born in the USA played a song her dad used to blast on the 4th of July. More ironic now than ever. Memories crashed in with every mile. The hardware store where her dad bought her first hammer. The high school football field where she and Emma, her twin, cheered under the Friday night lights. The cold creek where they caught crawdads and built dams in the summer heat. She passed the shuttered movie theater, the same place she watched Top Gun 3 times in a row, dreaming of a sky she'd never quite reach. The recruiting office was still there, though the posters now pushed the war in Iraq instead of Desert Storm. She smiled, thinking of Emma, identical on the outside, but so different inside. Becky was always the athlete, the strategist. Emma, the gentle bookworm. As kids, they'd been inseparable, speaking in their secret twin code. Everything changed in 1994, when Becky enlisted after seeing the Black Hawk Down coverage. She left Oakage behind, left even Emma in the dark about what came next. The training, the selections, the missions to places she couldn't name. The nights in Afghanistan, Syria, and God knows where else, each one leaving a mark. Becky finally turned onto the dirt road lined with ancient oak trees, the same ones her granddad planted when he came home from World War II. At the end of the drive sat the Mitchell family farm, 120 acres, a white farmhouse with a wraparound porch, and a bright red barn that looked freshly painted. She sat in the truck for a moment, steadying herself. Home meant slipping into an old role, pretending to be the Becky everyone remembered, not the Sentinel she'd become. The screen door flew open. Emma stood frozen on the porch, her mirror image, except for the waves in her hair and the simple sundress she wore, looking every bit the small-town teacher. "Becky?" Emma barely whispered. Then she ran, nearly tackling Becky in the yard. They laughed and cried in the same breath. 6 years apart disappeared in a heartbeat. "You didn't tell us you were coming," Emma scolded, searching her sister's face for new scars and old secrets. Becky just shrugged, voice roughened by years of command. "Wanted to surprise you." Their mom, Martha, former Army nurse, appeared, apron dusted with flour. Dad, Jack Mitchell, leaned heavy on his cane, his frame still imposing, a relic of his ranger days in Korea. Is that my girl? His voice caught. Becky hugged them both. But when her dad looked into her eyes, she felt exposed soldiers recognize each other by the ghosts they carry. He just pulled her close and whispered, "Welcome home, soldier." The house hadn't changed. Patchwork quilts, shelves of family photos, her dad's Bronze Star and Purple Heart in a wooden case beside the record player Hank Williams. Johnny Cash, the soundtrack of the Mitchell girls' childhood. "Hope you're hungry," Martha called, setting out fried chicken, mashed potatoes, sweet corn, and peach cobblers still warm on the sill. The smells alone made Becky want to stay forever. Over dinner, she stuck to safe stories enough to satisfy, never enough to reveal. Later, she and Emma sat on the porch swing, watching fireflies blink through the humid night. "You've changed," Emma said, not quite meeting her eyes. Becky hesitated. "How do you explain what the world had scraped out of you?" "We all change. Not like this," Emma said softly, touching the calluses on Becky's hand, seeing the shadow in her eyes. "Did you see bad things?" "Necessary things," Becky said, "for people who couldn't protect themselves." Emma nodded. "Dad says the same about Korea." They sat in silence, letting the night soak up what words couldn't reach. "Remember when Billy Thornton pushed me at recess and you bloodied his nose before the teacher got there?" Emma laughed. "You've always been my shield, and you were always my anchor," Becky replied. "In the loneliest moments, it was this farm, this family, that kept her grounded." Becky lay awake that night. Old habits, never dying bed facing the door, Beretta within reach, exits and escape routes mapped. In the morning, she found her dad at the kitchen table, both of them nursing coffee in quiet understanding. "Town's changed," Jack said. "Harrington Corporation bought up half the county promising jobs, building a new industrial complex. Your land's the last piece they want." Becky spent the morning with Emma, driving through oakage flags lining Main Street. Banners everywhere, proudly sponsored by Harrington Corp. More empty storefronts. Construction equipment gathering dust. Old shops lost to chain stores. "What does Harrington even make?" Becky asked. Nobody knows for sure. Something about advanced manufacturing and logistics. But they rush every permit. And I'm worried about water contamination. Emma had turned activist, organizing landowners, speaking at council meetings. It hadn't made her many friends among the Harrington crowd. At Darlene's, faces turned as they walked in, some friendly, some not. Nathan Harrington, the sheriff's son and company VP, approached with that oily, polite aggression. "Miss Mitchell, didn't expect to see you," he said, glancing between the sisters. "This must be the famous twin. Back from where was it again?" "Around," Becky replied, offering a handshake that let him know she wasn't intimidated. Nathan's smile never touched his eyes. "You'll find things have changed in Oakage. Smart folks adapt. Others get left behind." Becky shot back, holding his gaze just long enough to make him uncomfortable. They left the diner, tension thick in the air. Old friends warned Becky to be careful. "We could use some backbone around here," Bill Stewart at the general store told her. Inside, empty shelves and gaps where vinyl records used to be. Harrington opened a superstore on the highway, prices nobody can beat. Emma explained. "Downtown's dying." Frank Daniels, her dad's oldest friend, called her into his gun shop, sharing files he'd gathered, Harrington's past, fake credentials, military connections that didn't add up. "They want your land. Becky, your dad turned them down. So now come the threat stacks, reassessments, anonymous complaints, even vandalism. It's not just about money. There's something else going on." That night, the whole family joined the town for fireworks at the football field, blankets on the grass. Faces turned to the sky. Harrington security lurked at the edges, even at a community event. Becky watched as Nathan and his father, Sheriff Harrington, stood talking to men who didn't belong. As the finale burst overhead, Becky met Nathan's eyes across the field. This wasn't just about land. She'd left one battlefield for another, but this one was personal. When the night faded back to darkness, Becky Mitchell, former Sentinel, made a silent promise. She'd fight for Oakage with everything she had left.